Good afternoon, all of you. The topic for discussion is the applied aspects of stomach. In this topic, we will discuss today gastric mucosal barrier and pathophysiology of peptic ulcer, then physiology of vomiting, then gastroesophageal reflux disease, and gastric function test. Then first come to the gastric mucosal barrier. It is formed by the mucin secretion. This gastric mucosal barrier, it protects the gastric mucosa from damage to the intraluminal HCl. It means autodigestion. It is formed by or it is created by the mucin secretion. There is thin layer of surface mucus in the stomach and duodenum that prevent the direct contact of the acid and pepsin containing fluid with the surface epithelial cells. Then bicarbonate secretion, it is secreted by the surface epithelial cells in both stomach and duodenum that secrete bicarbonate, and it create an essential pH neutral microenvironment immediately adjacent to the cell surface. Third is the epithelial barrier. This intercellular tight junction provide a barrier to the back diffusion of the H plus ion. So any damaged cell are quickly replaced as the turnover of gastric mucosa is very high. Approximately 5 into 10 to the power 5 mucosal cells are shed each minute. That replaces the entire mucosa in 1 to 3 days. Now, high mucosal blood flow. There is very high mucosal blood flow. It rapidly carries away any acid that penetrates cellular lining, and it also provides oxygen, bicarbonate and nutrients to the epithelial cell. Now fifth is the prostaglandins. It is responsible for maintaining the gastric mucosal barrier. Pathophysiology of peptic ulcer. What is peptic ulcer? It refers to the excavation of the mucosa of duodenum or pyloric part of the stomach that is caused by the digestive action of gastric juice. Peptic ulcer can be caused by either of two ways. One is the diminished ability of the gastroduodenal mucosal barrier to protect against the digestive properties of the acid pepsin complex. There is gastroduodenal mucosal barrier. Factors that disrupt this mucosal barrier include bacterial infection by the Helicobacter pylori. What happened? In about 75 to 75% of the patient with peptic ulcer, it has been found that they have chronic infection by the H. pylori. The bacterium releases digestive enzymes that liquefy the barrier, which releases digestive enzymes, and it allows the gastric secretion to digest the epithelial cell, leading to peptic ulcer. Other factors that disturb the mucosal barrier are ethyl alcohol, vinegar, bile salts, cigarette smoking, and insults such as aspirin and brufen. Excessive secretion of gastric acid. Hyperacidity leads to ulcer formation in the duodenum and pyloric part of the stomach. It can be caused by increased parietal cell mass, increased sensitivity for the secretory stimuli, or excessive gastrin secretion, as in Zollinger Ellison syndrome, in which patients have gastrinoma or tumor that secrete gastrin. Physiologic basis of management of peptic ulcer. Commonly employed measures for treatment of peptic ulcer are: first is the antacid. Antacid form a gel that coats the mucosa and neutralizes the acids. Drugs such as H2 receptor blocking drugs such as cimetidine. It decreases HCl secretion by blocking the effect of histamine on the H2 receptor of parietal cell. Then M1 muscarinic receptor blocking drugs such as atropine. It decreases H plus secretion by blocking the effect of acetylcholine on M1 muscarinic receptor of the parietal cell. Then third is the gastric H plus K plus ATPase inhibiting drugs such as omeprazole. It decreases H plus secretion by blocking the action of gastric H plus K plus ATPase in the parietal cell. Then fourth is the bilateral vagotomy, that is combined with the resection of the gastric, producing pyloric part of the stomach, and it is performed in very severe case of duodenal and pyloric ulcer. Now, gastroesophageal reflux disease. What is gastroesophageal reflux disease? It is the in this disease there is incompetence of the lower esophageal junction that cause the reflux of the acidic gastric content into the esophagus. It leads to esophageal pain or heartburn because of the acid that enter into the esophagus, and irritation of the esophagus or bronchiole is there due to aspiration. Now, physiology of vomiting. Forceful expulsion of the content from the stomach and intestine is referred to vomiting. How this vomiting start? Vomiting can be initiated by either activation of the vomiting center or by activation of the chemoreceptor trigger zone. And first is the activation of the vomiting center. Vomiting center is situated in the reticular formation of the medulla oblongata near the vagal nucleus. It can be activated directly or through various afferent. Direct activation of vomiting center occur due to injury to this area or by raised intracranial pressure. Afferent impulse activating vomiting center include visceral afferent pathway in the sympathetic and vagal relay impulses arising due to irritation of the mucosa of upper GIT. Then afferent impulses from the vestibular nuclei that mediate nausea and vomiting of the motion sickness. Then third afferent is from the higher centers such as diencephalon and limbic system that mediate emetic responses to stimuli such as nauseating smell, sickening sights and memory. Activation of the chemoreceptor trigger zone. Activation of chemoreceptor trigger zone. This zone is located in the area postrema. It is V-shaped band of the tissue on the lateral wall of the fourth ventricle and it is outside the blood brain barrier. So it is more permeable to many substances than the underlying medulla. Chemoreceptor cell present in the chemoreceptor trigger zone, it initiate vomiting when they are stimulated by the circulating emetic substances in patient with uremia and radiation sickness, and circulating emetic agents such as apomorphine, emetin, digitalis and glucosides. Now, efferent impulses from vomiting center and chemoreceptor trigger zone, which give effect to the act of vomiting, are transmitted through 5th, 7th, 9th, 10th and 12th cranial nerve to upper GIT and through a spinal nerve to the muscle of respiration. Now, sequence of mechanical events of the vomiting. Vomiting is a complex process and consists of the following phases. First is the pre-ejection phase. In this phase, there occur gastric relaxation and retroperistalsis, means peristalsis in the opposite direction. It is characterized by the feeling of nausea, excessive salivation and deep, rapid and irregular breathing. Then second is the retching phase. It may precede in many cases. It is characterized by the closure of glottis, which remains so till the end of the vomiting. It increases intrapulmonary pressure and causing compression of the esophagus. It prevents aspiration of the vomitus in the trachea. There is rhythmic action of the respiratory muscles preceding vomiting and consists of contraction of the abdomen, intercostal and diaphragmatic muscle against a closed glottis. Then third is the ejection phase, during which the GIT content are actually expelled out, and it consists of the various events such as closure of glottis is continued, pyloric part of the stomach contract firmly and its content are transferred to the body of the stomach. Then there is simultaneous contraction of the abdominal muscle and descent of the diaphragm raises the intra-abdominal pressure for such an extent that all the contents are squeezed out of the stomach into the esophagus, as there is reflex relaxation of the cardiac sphincter occur at this moment. From the esophagus, the contents are expelled into the mouth due to the effect of positive intrapulmonary pressure and antiperistaltic wave in the esophagus. So, at this juncture, soft palate is raised that shut off the nasal cavity from the throat. Toward the end of the act of vomiting, diaphragm relaxes or ascends and expiratory muscle and abdominal wall contract. So this is about the vomiting. Now come to the gastric function test. In this gastric function test, it is employed to establish the presence of hyperchlorhydria, that is associated with peptic ulcer, or achlorhydria, that is complete absence of the acid secretion. that can occur in the pernicious anemia. Various gastric function tests include: first is the fractional taste meal test. It is employed commonly for analysis of the gastric juice. Presently, it is no more used because of its relative insensitivity and inconvenience. Procedure is as follows. After an overnight fast, the gastric fluid present in the stomach is aspirated with the help of Ryle's tube, passed into the stomach through nose or throat. Then a taste meal is then given to stimulate gastric juice. Any one of the standard taste meal can be given, either 300 ml of oatmeal gruel or dry toast and cup of a tea, or wheat biscuits and 300 ml of water. After 15 ml of giving taste meal, a sample of gastric content at around 10 ml of the fluid is aspirated. This procedure is repeated every 15 minutes for 3 hours. So, including the fasting sample, a total of the 13 samples are taken in separate containers. Each sample is then analyzed for free acidity, combined acidity, starch, sugar, bile, total chlorides, blood lactic acid and mucus. Then second test is the histamine test. It is comparatively more sensitive test than the fractional taste meal test for studying the gastric acid secretion. Why it is so? Because histamine is powerful stimulator of the acid secretion, and due to this histamine injection, acid level increases very rapidly, and therefore there is no time for neutralization of the acid. What is the procedure? After overnight fast, in the morning, stomach is aspirated and washed with distilled water. Then 0.5 mg of histamine is injected subcutaneously, and the gastric sample are aspirated, analyzed as described in the fractional taste meal test. If there is no free acid present in any of the sample, then it is called true achlorhydria or histamine fast achlorhydria. Then third is the augmented histamine test. This test is performed with progressively increasing dose of histamine in stepwise manner till a maximal secretory response is obtained. The maximal secretory response correlates well with the total number of parietal cells in the gastric mucosa. Fourth is the pentagastrin test. This test is performed to assess the gastric acid status. It is performed similar to histamine test, except that in this, instead of histamine, 6 mg of pentagastrin, that is the synthetic gastrin, is given subcutaneously. Then fifth is insulin test. This test is based on that in hypoglycemia, when blood sugar level goes below the 45 mg%, it produces the vagal stimulation through hypothalamus, and this vagal stimulation causes secretion of acid from the stomach. So in this test, 7 units of insulin are given intravenously, and the gastric sample are tested for the presence of free acid as in case of histamine test. Its acid secretion occur after insulin injection. that is the positive test, only if vagus nerve is intact. Therefore, insulin test is performed after vagotomy operation for gastric ulcer to know whether all fiber of nerve supplying stomach are cut or not. So, if vagotomy is done properly, insulin test is negative. Now, barium meal study. It is radiographic evaluation of the status of mucosa and lumen of the upper intestinal tract. In this test, patient swallows a suspension of radiopaque barium sulfate. While it passes through the GIT is observed by the radiograph on fluorescent screen and film are taken to provide a permanent record. Diagnosis of gastric ulcer, duodenal ulcer or any other abnormalities in lumen of GIT is made from the barium meal study. Seventh is the endoscopic examination and biopsy. In these days, condition of esophagus, gastric and duodenal mucosa can be directly visualized by the endoscopic examination. This is more reliable than the conventional barium meal study. The endoscope carry a channel through which biopsy forceps or a brush can be introduced to obtain a specimen for histological and cytological examinations. So this is about the gastric function tests. Various 7 tests are there. So it is all about the today class. Thank you.